Hi, I'm Nina Gryphon, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel. Today we'll talk about the astrology of week 4 of April 2025. This will cover April 20th through the 26th. First off, I'd like to say thank you to all of my patrons. If you would like to become a patron and get early access to these forecasts, please go to patreon.com/NinaGryphon. At the highest tier of the Patreon, you will get access to my monthly Magical Elections ebook, which teaches you how and when to make astrological talismans. April 20th, we get the Sun at 1 Taurus squaring Mars in Leo. This combination can bring unseasonable heat and storms with a strong electric atmosphere. The Sun can also trigger superior planets, and in this case, Mars, into action. So in many ways, we can see what Mars in Leo is about as the Sun brings out the truth of a matter, including the true expression of any planet in a sign. It's certainly an aggressive and very hot combination of two hot and dry planets, so we can expect hot weather, fires, as well as conflicts to flare up at this time. April 21st, Saturn at 26 Pisces conjoins the North Node. This combination spikes anxiety as Saturn rules fear and the North Node leads us on a merry chase of illusion. It's important to remember that Saturn will be very close to the North Node for quite a long time, at least a month and even more depending on the orb that you're using. So be aware that dirty deals, shady behavior, and misdeeds can happen now because Saturn rules sordid actions and the North Node does as well. So this aspect has been an orb for a while. And even though this is exactly the moment it's been culminating, we have actually experienced the influence of Saturn with the North Node for quite some time. Now, the illusions that we're dealing with now are Saturnian in nature. So they are illusions of solidity, of permanence, of restrictions and boundaries, and generally of embodiment. So we are operating under the very compelling illusion now that we are only our bodies and nothing else, and subject to a very limited view of reality. As with all these North Node conjunctions, we must remind ourselves not to take absolute statements about the nature of reality and power too seriously. Everything should be taken with a wink and a nod now, especially anyone making authoritative or imperative statements like thou shalt and thou shalt not. It's worth mentioning that the US financial markets may really gyrate now because the degrees of late Pisces are associated with a Nicene founding chart. The markets, of course, are very sensitive to fear and greed, and right now, fear dominates the collective psyche. April 23rd, the Sun at 3 Taurus squares Pluto in Aquarius. April 23rd, Venus conjoins the North Node at 26 Pisces, and then she conjoins Saturn the next day, April 24th at 27 Pisces. Now, Venus first conjoined Saturn on January 18th, and then she conjoined the North Node February 1st. So many of the same issues that we saw at that time have been reconsidered, and we see more definitive forward movement. Exploration of relationships, depths, and limitations is one way that Venus was manifesting at that time. I would call this combination as sounding the depths or exploring what is really there emotionally. Is it just an emotional puddle, or are we dealing with an ocean of emotion? It can be hard to tell. And on top of all this, the North Node creates strong compulsions, so we may not be equipped to see the truth now. Venus herself creates the beautiful, intoxicating illusion, especially in Pisces. The illusion could concern relationships, beauty, social cohesion, women, and so on. The important thing is to avoid taking anything too seriously and literally now, whether it's a message we're pleased to hear or not. Any conclusions that we draw must be treated skeptically. Now, Venus is powerful in Pisces because she's exalted, but the conjunction with Saturn adds nuance, and generally this year, Venus in late Pisces is not happy. Love is combined with sorrow now. There are obstacles and feelings of isolation in relationships, whether personal or societal. The twist here, because of the presence of the North Node, especially in Pisces, is that both the love and the isolation are largely illusory. It's not that the love is real, but the obstacles are false, or vice versa. It's that the whole experience, both the Venus and the Saturn parts, are not what they seem. They just may not be that important in reality, despite their outsized appearance. April 26th, Mars at 3 Leo opposes Pluto in Aquarius. This is the heavy-hitting aspect for this week, as it involves a superior planet and an outer planet in a hard aspect. It's a violent and intense combination that leads to conflict, war, and destruction. We also could see attempts at cutting or metaphorical violence being done to public resources, represented by Aquarius. But then, let's remember that in a showdown between Pluto and Mars, Pluto, in the long run, will always win. The Lord of the Underworld cannot be compelled by anyone. In our personal lives, we may get drawn into conflicts, and the answer in those cases is simply not to embody either Mars or Pluto. You can choose another role, but right now, do not be a combatant, as it will not end well for you. Thanks for watching. I'm Nina Gryphon, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel.